Expression. This is the blog that explores entrepreneurship. I'm your host, Shelley Morrisette. Today, we have Don Nori. And Don Nori is one of the brains for this particular blog. He came up with the idea, and he convinced me that this was a way of spreading the entrepreneurship message at Shippensburg University, and so I'm highly involved now. So we're filming this and we're recording all this at Don's studio at Nori Media. And so today, Don and I are going to have a back and forth about entrepreneurship. Both of us are entrepreneurs. We're going to talk about, how we got started, what were some of the turns that happened, and our journey. Mine was a very long journey. Obviously, Don's much younger than I am, so he's got a shorter journey, but his is very, very interesting. He's got a lot of things to talk about as far as media goes. My companies didn't have anything to do with media. Mine were all about research and everything. So, welcome, Don. Good to be here. Let's start off with how you took over Nori Media and what you've done. I know that you've bought several businesses and you've expanded things, and you can talk about all the entrepreneurial things that you've done since you've taken over. So let's just start there and talk about Nori Media and where are you going to take it?
Thank you. Well, in the early 80s, my father started a publishing company, and it was called Destiny Image. And over the years, as I grew up, I always worked part-time in this company. And at different times, I worked in different parts. I worked in product services, packing and shipping orders. I worked in accounting. At one point as a teenager, I was our company collections agent by phone.
Oh, that's a good job, a collection agent.
I worked the front desk phones.
Ooh.
I was an assistant in our acquisitions department at one time, where I helped to develop the contracts and send them to authors. And so during this time, my father would also take me on trips with him to meet clients, and see negotiations firsthand, how he did things. And, my father's entrepreneurial spirit was always, if I had a penny in the bank, I need to spend it to keep building something. And my personal vision is seeing how, stressful that was I wanted to be able to finance business, make sure all clients, partners, and ourselves were financially successful. We had the means to become wealthy. In the early 2000s, my father had 2 heart attacks and a stroke. And at that time, we were fearful that if he were to pass away, what would the tax implications be? What would it look like? And so one of my brothers and I financed a buyout. And we ended up purchasing that original company, Destiny Image, from my father. And from that point on, I was CEO, and I always oversee marketing and acquisitions. My brother was always over technology and operations. And the first thing I learned was you need to have people that are smarter than you in certain areas. And so we had a terrific CFO that's been with us for a long time that helps to oversee accounting and really helps us to keep everything straight. Now, to take that story ahead, so over the years we started off with a tremendous amount of debt. And in 2008, we had to lay off half of our staff. And at one point, the digital world erupted. There used to be a time when publishing books was very exclusive, a huge barrier to entry. You had to have us as a publisher. You couldn't even get a book printed. Technology advanced to the point where anybody could do an ebook, anybody could self-publish any old thing to Amazon. Publishing became, not quite as simple as YouTube, but getting close. And so we had to adapt, develop to where we were developing a network of resources where we could help our clients and authors build bigger platforms of visibility. And that involved tying into more and more media. still around that time, I was still spending a huge amount of money on magazine advertising, things of that nature. So as we entered the digital era, we were able to successfully transition into several areas. One is, ebook transition development, where ebooks and electronic sales are about 20% of our revenues in today. The Amazon ebook account itself is our fourth largest account, but we do ebooks through Apple Books, through Google, through a lot of other companies,
Right.
but much smaller scale. And I was able to, again, find the right people that were able to help us transition. Because as the digital economy grew, the brick and mortar stores started to collapse. Borders stores closed down, Walden Books, family stores. So many of the brick and mortar stores where we had hundreds of thousands of books, exclusive kind of real estate that made us very valuable to authors, were just disappearing.
Mm-hmm.
And so hiring the right people, we were able to build a retail landscape that kind of replaced one of our chain stores that we lost. Does about the same amount of volume as family stores did.
Mm-hmm.
During this period, we were able to transition our advertising dollars into digital advertising, and we found the right strategies with Facebook and with YouTube, where they drive an incredible volume of sales revenue for us. So we got to a point where we were able to get out of debt and start building up a cash reserve. And our CFO had an idea about starting a business publishing company.
Ooh.
And business motivational, and again, my desire to finance business, make sure everybody's wealthy. Well, we decided to start up this new company, and we have an exclusive contract with the Napoleon Hill Foundation, and our top book in that company is Think and Grow Rich, 13 Steps to Wealth. And that company is a multi-million-dollar company now. So we continued to build a cash reserve. And then one of our competitors in the marketplace became available for sale. We examined it, and we saw that this company used the exact same accounting system we did, so it was very easy to understand. It had similar content relations, so we knew that we could plug it into our networks and into our system pretty well for success to be able to develop it. And then talking to the owner, we discovered that the amount of money he needed by a certain date was just about the amount of money we had in our little cash reserve, our war chest.
Our little sunny day, rainy day fund.
So I like things in threes, and so we purchased that organization. And not soon after, we started a smaller side business on bulk mailing to support one of our clients' needs. And that blossomed into something larger than we thought. Something we thought was going to be temporary, short-term, turned into a significant revenue stream. And it was so unintentional that the name of that company, simply in our umbrella, is called Bulk Mail. And it provides...
It's like Kleenex.
It is. It just provides a revenue stream. It's something that we only use for specific clients, but it works really well. And I learned a lot about business and entrepreneurship from Shippensburg University. In fact, I had you as a professor.
Yes.
And you had this structure for planning a business. How are you going to develop a business plan to make something work? And I had always had a short form project cost analysis and looked at things on a very small basis. And I thought, this is a great exercise. I want to apply this real world.
Yeah, you did it for that client.
I did. I identified a client that I wanted to develop as a brand. And really, so we took out a loan from the bank to start that brand development, and we invested in that. And now that original product that I had, in the first item I had launched, wasn't all that successful. But the doorway into that brand and everything related since that point has been immensely successful as a result. And so following business plan development through you as an entrepreneurship class really helped me look at things. I call it from a 30,000 foot view, and it helped me understand the necessity of connecting all the dots.
Mm-hmm.
It's great to have vision, but how are you going to get there?
Mm-hmm.
You know, how are you going to make it work? And that brings us to where we are today in this economy. Being in my position, I was fortunate to receive recommendations to be an adjunct professor at Shippensburg University, which gives me huge credibility with my clients in my field.
Mm-hmm.
And while I was teaching a class in 2019, I took an online certification course. I thought I could teach online.
Yeah.
And so January 2020, I started teaching a class online. And then soon after, the world shut down because of the pandemic. But through the course of learning this online certification, I had implemented Zoom technology and all these different pieces of equipment all throughout my building with my staff and with my staff that are in remote locations like Tulsa, Texas,
Mm-hmm.
North Carolina, Milton Keynes, England, and started implementing regular meetings to have online. Well, whenever the world shut down, I was already trained by Shippensburg how to continue.
Whoops.
And we were able to remain open, just had to space out more internally because we're a publishing media company.
Right.
Now, those first couple months of pandemic were the worst couple of months in the history of our organization financially.
Ooh.
I'm not going to lie. I had lists of the employees, and we're looking at, what happens if we have to have skeleton crew? What are the steps if this continues? But I challenged our team, said we need to have an emergency publishing initiative.
Mm-hmm.
Now they rallied. We kind of reinvented the publishing wheel for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And we bolstered into media, bolstered into video production, into partnering with clients that had video and broadcasting capabilities,
Mm-hmm.
online streaming, really advanced in these different areas of media, that the primary book just became the core message, but we had to have everything around it. Not just the book, but the ebook, the audio book, a hardcover, a soft cover, various videos for YouTube and for e-courses and online teaching from this author. We had to have this author have video content that we could use with our other media partners in their fields. And we really became expert in that area, which then the result of that was by the end of 2020, we were able to post 2 very significant claims.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we had our worst months in history in that year, but that year also was our most profitable year in history.
Wow, that's a turnaround.
Mm.
You talked about a lot of things, the successes and the ups and the downs and everything. It seems like the last 5 years, there's been a tremendous amount of successes and everything. What I want to talk about, not because I'm a downer, because I want to talk about the successes too, but the 2 things that I think are incredible that you talked about in everything is, one was the succession plan, that your father got sick and that you and your brother, took over the business and how you had to buy him out and everything for the tax purposes and everything like that. So that's one thing, that's hard. One of the hardest things to do is to have a succession plan in the business. The next generation taking over. That's really a tough thing. A lot of businesses go under. I mean, a ton of businesses
We didn't have one.
Yeah.
We came up.
You did it on the fly.
My brother and I, we came up with the idea for, what? We can do this. Let's buy this.
Mm-hmm.
And talking to my father, look, if we buy this from you,
Mm-hmm.
our goal was to set him up with golden parachute retirement. This is going to take care of you forever. Let us buy this. We'll take on the debt. We'll take on everything. And we will make it work. And you know what drove us to have to make it work?
There was no alternative.
We had to put everything we owned on the line. Our houses, all of our personal assets belong to the bank.
I know.
If we don't make it work.
That's exactly what I did.
Yes. So a big part of the entrepreneur is calculated risk.
Everybody thinks that entrepreneurs are everybody thinks we're like people that get on a tree, get in on a building without a parachute and get ready to jump off. Nothing could be further from the truth. I mean, I took a risk just like you did when I started my business and everything like that. I sold everything, sold my car, sold my house, sold everything, moved halfway across the country and everything like that. But after that, I never had these crazy things where I was taking big risks. I never did. But talking about that succession plan, I mean, that's what really got me, because I'm always involved with, people that are in small businesses, and I always say, well, how are you going to, what's the end game here? In other words, are you going to sell the business? Are you going to give it to your children? Are the children going to buy you out? In other words, as you know, in most businesses, not all, but a lot of businesses, there's a lot of locked in value, where it's not a publicly traded company where you can sell stock or anything like that. So to get really liquid, you have to sell the business. You can't, in other words, my company, we weren't publicly traded and everything. We had stock, but you couldn't sell it anywhere. So the thing is we had a lot of I'm going to say equity or value, however you want to say it, capital. We had a lot of, but it was all locked in the company. So in order for us to unlock that, I had to sell sell the business and everything like that. Whereas what you have done here is you have taken what was your father's equity, and you and your brother had bought in and gave him a golden parachute, which is incredible, because so many people don't do that.
Well, I tell you what, if I didn't do that in the other business I bought.
Right.
I looked at a value of that business. I said, it's worth this. I'm willing to pay this much because I can see that's what it's worth. Mm-hmm. And I'm sorry, whatever other debt or whatever that guy had, he's a smart businessman. He had other businesses, but this is the value, and he was willing to accept that, and he took it. But when it came to family, I knew that I wanted to do something to honor that equity, as you put it. Mm-hmm. So, when we bought the company, we essentially had to take on responsibility for a $4 million investment.
Ooh.
And we set it up as an annuity. So at the same time, I shared that my father's an entrepreneurial spirit. He was always on the edge of destruction financially. And we said, we just can't put a pile of money in the bank. So we actually invested in an annuity that pays out a certain amount of money each month. Uh-huh. And we have to continue funding that annuity on a regular basis.
Right.
But that pays out a certain amount of money each month to my parents. Mm-hmm. And you can structure a buyout just about any way. Mm-hmm. I've been working on buying another company recently that whenever I looked at the value and I said, here's the value of your company. It's $1 million is what I'm willing to pay.
Right.
And they said, oh, that's it. We want at least $2.5 million. I'm like, well, I'm not willing to pay that kind of premium. When the industry average and all of the metrics, here it is, says it's worth $1 million.
Right.
They said, well, we pull a couple $100,000 a year out of this. So well, that's because you're the only two people running it.
Right.
And if you want to keep doing that, you'll continue to make that, or it'll slowly decline. But yeah, if you want to cash out, this is what you need to do. But there's a lot of different ways you can structure that. But for us, we deal with this intellectual property that has this, it's like land that has ongoing value. For when you can sell that as an asset sale, like the building we're in, I could sell my intellectual property for about $10 million.
Wow.
The land we're sitting on is about $1 million. And if I were to sell the companies we have, nobody would want the building or the land we're sitting on. They would just want that intellectual property because it's publishing intellectual property.
Right.
Whenever your assets are your client list or some other physical equipment form, that takes on a different kind of sale.
Well, that's what happened with my business when I sold it. Like, we went to sell the business. I didn't want to sell. I had two other partners. I didn't want to sell, and they wanted to sell. I owned about 45% 5%, and they owned.
Oh, I could just out.
I'm just out. They could
Oh.
outvote me. So anyway, the thing is we went in and we talked, and we had all the numbers. The normal ways that discounted cash flows, where this is our profit, this is what we're going to think we're going to, we're going to be doing in the years to come. You take those cash flows and you discount them back to today to come up with the net present value, and that's what the value of the company is. So we had those figures. We had them all. We had them dead to right and everything. We went in there with the negotiations and everything, and we're talking and everything. And they said, "Well, we're really not interested in that." And I'm like, "You're not interested in cash flows?" They said, "We're interested in your customers, because what we want is we want new customers. And if your customers are the same as our customers, then the business isn't worth anything to us." And he said, "We want you to turn over your customer list, not your financial statements." And I'm like, "No, no." I said, "You can't have," because the thing is, if they got our customer list, they could just.
That's risk.
Yeah, that is.
They can say, we've decided not to buy, but now they can go after.
Yeah, they can go after all the customers.
Wow.
See?
Wow.
See, everything that they have the same customer. Well, we can go after those people right there and go after them. And so we tussled back and forth and everything like that. And I said, finally, it wasn't me. It was actually the other side. They said, "Well, how about if we get an independent third party that compares the list and doesn't say who the customers are, but just says how many different customers you have than we do." And I said, "Okay, that makes sense."
See, you found a good path.
Found a good path, and the person, I think it was a other person's lawyer, attorney, that actually came up with the idea. And so what we did was we got another attorney who had nothing to do with the sale or with either company, and we both gave him customer list. He compared them, and then he told how many different customers we had than they did, and that's how we bargained for the sale of the company.
Wow, that's interesting. They were interested in the cash flows. They were interested in the customers.
They were interested in the customers because what they wanted to do was take our customers and sell their products to them. They really want to sell ours for as long as it lasted. But the bigger thing was to get customers that they could sell their products directly to, their competing products and everything like that.
They could elevate their business by adding their customers.
It was a good deal for them because they could grow they were bigger than them. They were much larger than we were, but we had a lot of clients that they didn't have. And so, it was. That
was your competitive advantage.
Yeah, we did. We had some clients that they didn't have, and we were selling a lot of products that they didn't have. So those are the two things that we had. And so it wasn't a traditional thing where you look at the cash flows that we were generating. It was all about customers. How many customers did we have, and who were they?
So the sale based on customers and based on your profitability, but your proprietary information on the types of products that you were selling.
That's what we sold.
That's
we
valuable.
did not sell. It wasn't that I don't know if they really wanted to run our business as a going concern. I think they were fine this is what I think. And I didn't stick around as soon as I got the money, I hit the door. But I think this is what they wanted. I think what they wanted was who these new customers were, what products they were buying from us that they didn't offer. And then the third thing was they wanted a kind of a good faith. We're going to continue to provide these services as long as you want them. In other words, they were going to keep us around until they either took over the same products and offered theirs, or they didn't want to leave them high and dry.
They were trying to propose a transition period to try to acclimate the customers over.
Like a little bridge. They were going to bring them, that's what I like to think of. They didn't want to leave those customers without the services they were used to. So they were going to bridge. We were like a little bridge until they could get up and running and everything. So that's how it went.
I had heard a funny term about that, about transitioning customers. Somebody told me one time, and I don't remember who said this, They said, we're going to goldfish them.
Goldfish.
So what does that mean, goldfishing customers? Well, goldfish, you want to change their tanks. So there's a guy that loved tropical fish.
I get it.
He says you've got to put them in a bowl with their original water, and you've got to acclimate them then by putting that bowl or that bag of water into the other tank and letting it slowly get to temperature over time before you release them into that tank. Otherwise, the shock could kill them.
That's true.
You don't want to,
That's true. Well, the other thing I wanted to talk about, besides the succession plan, which I'm really interested in. I work with a lot of small business owners, and I'm always, dealing with. Well, I'm not dealing that much with them, but I'm always worried that people don't have succession plan. But the other thing is, which I'm really, really interested in, is disruption. It's disruption. You got disrupted with the digital technology phase from your traditional, book,
yes,
hard book, and everything went from a traditional book to a digital format. And I am just completely infatuated with disruption, because I always see these companies, you see these big staid companies, and they're big, and they've got a moat around them, and they think that they're immune from anything ever happening to them and everything, and they look at their competition and they say, oh, they're going to die in our moat, they'll never get to us. But they don't realize there's 1,000 entrepreneurs naked in garages trying to come up with ways to disrupt them. These guys are geeks. They're working in a garage, their parents' garage, and there's 1,000 of them out there doing it. Now, 999 are going to fail. They're going to die in the moat. But one of those guys is going to get across the moat, and he or she is going to disrupt that business. And that's what happened to you. You were in this nice moat, and something came along and disrupted you. So tell me about that. That's just a very interesting story. How did you deal with that? You said good people, but
good people. Well, I can tell you, digital disruption.
Right.
I mean, it was very real. There's a lot of our competitors that were much more entrenched, that thought they were immune. They didn't think they had to transition to this. Their products weren't meant for that. And those those companies, declined. Some of them completely disappeared, or they got bought because they got distressed. And for us, I described it as the digital area. There was a fog, and us as a traditional publisher, we had to find the right path, because you go through that fog, you're either going to find a bridge or you're going to find a cliff.
Ooh.
We had to find a bridge. Several things developed out of it. We started working again with more media partners. But on the digital side, for ebooks, we started hiring people to do things like audiobooks and ebook conversion, and we were trying to build a method of distribution for these things ourselves. As we saw it coming, the fog was getting thicker. And I was very fortunate attending trade shows, able to run into some of these innovators, some of these people that are looking at new opportunities. And I was able to find some reputable people. Your mic fell.
Oh, I apologize.
There you go. I was able to find some reputable people that, hey, we can do ebook conversions for you. We can do these formats, and we can do them across the board. So we're going to invest in that. Not sure how we're going to distribute it. Well, then there's this company, Amazon, that had been selling books for a long time, that they really, really advanced the ebook distribution market. And in fact, at the time, early on, we had an intern that we assigned to developing Amazon. We're selling books. We want you to work on this on the digital side. Figure this out a little bit. And just measuring that a little bit, we quickly figured out how lucrative it could be. That was the distribution platform.
Right.
That was going to be it. And so, following suit, you had other companies like Apple, Google, and there was a lot of other Moby and a lot of other companies that got into the game.
Mm-hmm.
and we were distributing for them and through them. But Amazon quickly grew to the top. They introduced the Kindle. They made it easy. So they had technology, but they needed content providers. They needed publishers,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So we were able to transition right into that very well. And then, at the same time as we were testing out audiobook publishing, we were able to find a effective path to successfully finance audiobook development in a big way.
Mm-hmm.
See, and it was another innovative idea that came through Amazon. They said, we have this company, we bought Audible.
Oh, man.
We need members. And if you sign up members, we're going to give you a bounty. We're going to pay you for every member that you bring us.
Oh.
And so we said, you know what? We're going to pay. We created some audiobooks, and then we marketed those audiobooks, for people to get them through Audible.
Right.
And for every new client we sent Audible, they sent us a bounty. And we used that money to finance more audiobook production, to where today we have 1,000 audiobooks in publication. And we basically paid for it in this circle of life where we invested in some, we marketed them, Audible would pay you bounties, and we used that money. And we got to a point where it was we were doing so well with our sales then, after we had enough inventory of audiobooks, that when Amazon stopped using that system, when they stopped paying a bounty, when they had enough customers and said, we don't need to pay for more customers anymore.
Just like Amazon Prime.
There you go. We don't need to pay for more customers anymore. We had already built a substantial business. Now, that's not a separate business. That's not an entrepreneurial venture, but that was a great innovation.
Right.
And so the digital era, it's finding those digital opportunities. It's being able to deal with the disruptions. And you know what the new disruption is? NFTs, non-fungible tokens.
Oh.
Can you imagine right now you stream a movie,
Yep.
or you buy an ebook. Those are just licenses.
Right.
You can't resell those.
No.
But if they become tokens, like a Bitcoin, you can.
Bitcoin might not be the marketing point of use.
Well, that's just hypothetical.
Yeah.
It becomes a physical digital product.
Right.
So if you buy an ebook, it is so much yours that imagine buying an ebook on Amazon and being able to then resell it. That'll change our whole publishing marketing strategy
Right.
when that occurs. And I say when because it's happening. It was actually part of a bill in Congress just recently that got cut out because the world's not ready for this.
Right.
It's being pushed hard here and in Europe, and it's going to happen.
So you think that's the next disruption?
The next disruption is non-fungible tokens of digital products, where you'll be able to own digital products. They will be assets that you can resell in your digital yard sale.
Is this a great world or what?
Topps Trading Cards is already doing it. Art is, the art
really
world
doing
is
it.
really doing it.
Yeah.
And the next digital disruption with art is artificial intelligence. Imagine a computer program that you can simply sit there and describe a picture you want. Give it all of these reference points.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you're finished, you hit a button and it creates an absolutely original piece of art. I have teams of artists in training right now over the next several weeks, learning how to use some of those most basic programs, because that is going to replace the graphic design industry. It's interesting stuff.
Yeah.
I'm not always right with this stuff. And I'll tell you what, I've been wrong a lot more times than I've been right.
But you only need to be right on a big home run.
I invest in the different things because I want to be ready.
Right.
Because I don't want to be caught thinking my moat is just good enough.
Right.
I want to be ready at every point.
That's exciting. I love the idea of you owning a digital, getting intellectual property for something that's digital.
I'm wearing a digital jacket right now. I just hope the battery doesn't run out. It'll disappear.
It'll disappear.
I'm kidding.
Well, the thing is the thing is Bitcoin right now is, as we sit here today, is as everyone knows, this had a tremendous, I guess you would say, falling.
Upset.
Upset. It's gone. From what I understand, it's most of the Bitcoin. Well, FTX is down 100%, but everybody, all the others are down 75% from their peaks.
Well, it's an interesting piece. There's been a huge push to be able to use, digital money like that,
right,
around the world, and have it being able to be added to index funds, being able to be recognized by global banking institutions. But everybody's been resistant. Now the U.S. is entering a 12-week experiment where they're going to make a U.S. Bitcoin, right? And that's just to combat, because China's doing it.
Well,
now that's how you can remain a reserve currency. But the thing is so if the U.S. does that with the dollar, now all of a sudden you can have U.S. dollars that aren't tracked like through your credit card, but you have these U.S. dollars as tokens that you can trade like cash, but digitally.
The thing is, though, everybody, I mean, the two things that everybody worries about, and rightfully so, are illegal activities, using this currency, which is digital. You use it to, launder drug money or whatever nefarious things are out there. And I'm not saying that, they can probably come up with ways of stopping it. The other thing is besides that is the idea of not being able to track things for tax purposes.
That's what it always is. That's the problem with cash.
Yeah.
As a retail establishment, if you get a lot of payments in cash, and those retail establishments don't report all the cash.
Right.
So you're talking about replacing cash with a different form of cash. So you're always going to have those problems. It's just what kind of cash? Do you want gold coins? Do you want paper dollars? Do you want a digital dollar? Now, Bitcoin is what I had to use when we were a victim of ransomware. Somebody locked up our servers, and they're not going to release our information unless we pay. And now, thankfully, whenever they tried to look up our company, instead of looking up Nori Media Group, they looked up Nori Medical Group, which doesn't exist. And I know they did that because I got a Dun & Bradstreet report from my address. And so we said, this is what we need to do. We made, generic Gmail account, emailed them and said, we don't have any money, because if they realize we're a $10 million company, they'd ransom it for $1 million.
Of course they would.
That's what they do to hospitals. So we said we didn't have any money, and they said, fine, give us, $5,000 in Bitcoin, and we'll release your information. And so that's where we learned how to buy Bitcoin. But I didn't just buy $5,000 worth. I bought a pocket full, just in case.
Just in case it comes back up.
And I sat on that pocket full of Bitcoin for several years. So even though Bitcoin is way down right now, our coin account as a corporate investment is way up from where it was 7 years ago.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Funny stories.
Well, there are funny stories. And like a funny story I'm thinking about is I would like to own a currency where, the Federal Reserve can't, mess it up. And, all central banks bow to political pressure. And I'm not saying Democrat or Republican or whatever, both of them do it. And the thing is we've got a currency now where here in the United States we're experiencing, somewhere between 8.5% and 7.7% inflation a month.
It's losing value, losing buying power.
Every month that you've got cash on hand, it decreases.
And then it becomes more expensive to borrow because to slow it down, they raise interest rates.
Well, the thing is the monetary supply. Milton Friedman used to joke about the monetary supply and saying that, if you put people in charge of it, they're always going to overshoot or undershoot constantly. They're going to overshoot, undershoot, squeeze it too much, step on the gas and you've got inflation, squeeze it too much, you've got a depression or a recession or something like that. The only thing that you can do is just have somebody, maybe a computer program that says, we're going to let it grow as the economy grows. We'll increase the money supply. In other words, you need more cash if the economy is growing.
And we have that. It's called the free market. And you identified it right. It doesn't matter what government it is, the more they mess with free market, the more it influences that. And it's hard, because once you start influencing one thing, you get a side effect here. So you start dealing with that thing, you get a side effect here and here and here and here. It's hard to juggle it. And so the solution, the global banks, they see something like Bitcoin They say, we don't want to leave that much power in other hands where we don't have any influence.
Right.
And so that's what they're trying to come up with, like the U.S. version of a Bitcoin.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, the U.S. could pull it off because the U.S. is the currency of international trade.
It's the world reserve. You
It's
got to
the
buy
world-
the U.S. dollar
you-
before you buy anything else.
Everything's traded in dollars. Nobody uses the yuan. Nobody uses the Chinese yuan because the Chinese manipulate their currency constantly.
Nobody trusts them.
Well,
That's it.
let's just say that they manipulate their currency, whereas now there's all types of things going on, and I don't want to turn this into a political thing, but
Well, I can relate it to something current event that affects our business.
okay,
So that inflation you talked about,
right,
the costs of goods. I've got supply chain shortages, so all my suppliers are raising their prices to me, right? And you have this across the board with the increase in energy prices combined with the increase in inflation. The costs across the supplier base has gone up. And so we are actively working on a problem, which is the more things cost, the less we make. Just on Monday, which was yesterday, I had a report of a product we launched and we sold. And we were doing a quick, after fire report.
right.
Where are we at? This moved really well. We lost a little bit of money on every single sale of this product because it was underpriced.
But you made it up on volume.
Well, the problem is that product has been successful.
Right.
That volume has cost us $20,000.
Oh.
We said, you know what? We made a mistake. Now, actively across our line of 3,000 book products, we are examining and implementing retail climbs. Now, you talk about not being too significant or shocking, but when I'm getting a 20, 30% in cost increase under me, and my distributors, they're getting a 50, 55% cut, my margin's getting slimmer. So I've got to add another $1 to this pricing to regrow that cushion. So on average, all of our products are getting a couple dollar price increase. And going forward, all new products are starting out at a higher level. And I'm not seeing a negative demand curve on those new products. So I'm comfortable at that level. It's a ceiling level, but it's not at the point that it's a major turnoff.
In other words, there's some pricing elasticity. They're going to accept the price increase right now.
Yes.
They're not being price sensitive, but eventually there's going to come a point where that product is not going to be able to sell at that higher price point.
Yeah.
You don't know what it is, but it's somewhere up there. The elasticity of demand is going to flip over.
Well, the beauty of it is we get to decide those prices for our products based on our needs and being sensitive to the customers that we're selling to.
Right.
We understand that, so we're careful. You go to a place like Russia that has millions and millions of products, and the government's going to try to set the prices for everything. You can't conceivably set the prices effectively for millions of products across markets. That's why the free market here, for us, I'm deciding for me. I'm deciding for the people that work here. I want myself, my partners, my clients, my suppliers, all to make money.
Right.
And so we're setting all our pricing in accordance because we need each other to make it all work.
Well, that's the only way you can, when we talk about competition, and I was talking in a prior video about competition, you want to be in a spot where you're the only person. You want to be in a monopoly situation where you're not having competitors that you're going to have to constantly beat up on. You want to be in a situation where you own a space and your competitors are saying, well, I'm going to let Don own that space, whatever that space might be, because it's just not worth to slug it out with him. It's just not worth it. And Don, being the smart business person, is going to say, I need to treat my employees well. I need to treat my suppliers well. I need to treat, my intermediaries well. I need to treat, everybody well, because if I do that and everything, I'm going to be successful if everybody's making money. If everybody's making money, it's like a football team. There's always tons of problems when you're losing, but when you're winning, there are no problems. There's no problems on a winning football team. It's just when you're losing. And so, one of the things about strategy is the theory is you've got to do two things. You've got to say to yourself, okay, what domain or place do I want to play? Okay, and you can play in lots of different spaces, and you've named tons of spaces that you're playing in. So you're playing in that domain, and the second thing is what do I need to do to win in that domain?
Well, this is something I learned from you. I think you'll be able to share a little bit about it.
What's that?
As you talked about the digital world, and everything has become less and less personal.
Oh, yeah.
But one of the things that you would talk about is the importance of boots on the ground, seeing people in person. How important was it for you in your career to travel regularly? How many air miles did you rack up because you had to go see clients?
In the last year, I flew over almost 300,000 miles in a year. But I was taking lots of trips to the Far East.
Well,
you can rack up a lot of miles.
Well, true, but is it more effective even in this day and age? Now, you might have been able to lessen that a degree with Zoom, but how important is it to be?
Oh, you've got to be there. The thing is,
how much better is this than if we were just on a phone call?
Well, it's so much better to be with the client. And the thing is you get to know the thing is clients. A lot of times, what I like to say with clients is they're happy. The whole thing is you see these charts all the time where it says how satisfied are you, and they say they're very satisfied. But the thing about it is even if you're satisfied doesn't mean you're loyal. I mean, you've got to be a raving fan to be loyal. In other words, you can lose a client even if they're satisfied. You call them up and you say, how satisfied are you? And they say, oh, I'm very satisfied. Or you get your people to call, or you get an independent marketing research firm to call your clients and ask them how satisfied they are. And they'll say, oh, I'm very satisfied. Or they'll give you a 4 out of 5 point scale, or maybe even a 5 out of a 5 point scale. But the thing is, until they're over the top crazy about you, you can lose them. You can lose them in a heartbeat. And so touching base with them, the thing is what you do is you learn if they're really, really satisfied. You talk to them and everything, and you say, well, how's this working for you? Well, it's good. Well, the next question you have to ask is, how could it be better? How could it be better? Yeah. How could it be better for you? And the thing is you sit there and you watch the wheels round in this guy's head or this woman's head that knows this business, and you say, how could it be better? And they tell you, and you say, oh, okay, all right, this is what you want. And you say to yourself, all right, what has to be true with this idea to make it work from my point of view? So they say, I want X, whatever X might be, and I don't care what it is. We want 6 wheels on the car. I don't care whatever it is. And then you say to yourself, okay, what has to be true about this idea or this theory that they've given me? They've given me this blueprint. Now, what has to be true for me to be successful to do it? What employees do I need? What capabilities do I need? What management systems to make it happen and give this client what they want? What has to be true? And if you can line up that you can do all the things that have to be true to make this happen, then that's an idea worth pursuing. Now, if there are certain things that you can't do for whatever reasons, you just aren't able to make that happen for that client, then you can't do it. But you might say to yourself, maybe I can build those capabilities, or maybe I can get those capabilities, or maybe I can hire those employees to make that happen. And that's great. But the thing is, that's the process. When you go see someone, you go, well, what would you want to make you really happy? I mean, what would make you really happy?
I like that.
And then you say, okay, all right. And then the second question is, well, okay, what has to be true about this, and a lot of times you'll find out that that there are a lot of things like we don't have the capabilities of putting 6 wheels on a car. We don't have the engineering capabilities. We don't have the production capabilities. We don't have the knowledge capabilities, whatever it is. And in those situations, you can't make it happen for them. And that's just a space that you can't go. You can't work in.
And being able to say no is a power in all itself. You can't break yourself trying to do everything.
You can't do everything. You can't do everything. But the thing is, if it lines up with your capabilities, your skills, and everything like that,
that's the key.
That's the key. And the thing is people always, this is what I hear from all high tech people. There are no competitive advantages. That's what I hear all the time. There's no competitive advantages out there at all. That everything can be copied and everything can be replicated and everything can be, duplicated and everything like that. So there are no competitive advantages for a firm. You don't have any at all. And I'm like, that is the most foolish thing I've ever heard in my life.
That's real defeatist mentality.
Yeah, that's just like...
You know what? And I love to hear that because I'll say, thanks for making the way for the rest of us.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to have to work too hard against you.
Yeah. The thing is, it's like this. It's like Southwest. They're the only airline that makes money. All the others are broke. Southwest has been doing it for 50 years. Don't tell me they don't have a competitive advantage. They only fly 737s. They only, they fly point to point. They've got no hubs. They hire off of attitude. They don't hire off of skills. They've got 1,000 things that they do. Okay, Four Seasons Hotel. They are the number one hotel for high-end business travelers. Right? They've got a management system for every restaurant, for every hotel. They've got 400 employees. They get 40,000 applicants for every new hotel they open. They interview 4,000. Their average turnover rate is less than 5% a year. Everybody else is in the industry is 75%. So what they do is they've got this management system where their employees are going to have a 20-year career. Everybody else's is going to last 15 months. So they've got a competitive advantage there. I mean, Costco, whatever area there is, they're companies that have competitive advantages. Yeah. They're hard to find and they're hard to maintain, but
you identify it so that you can embrace it and use it. If you're not working to identify those advantages and you're not working to use them, then you're going to feel like there's no hope, no possibility.
Well, everybody wants, Peter Thiel wrote this book. I can't 0 to 1 or something. I apologize for not being able to get the.
We're not promoting other books.
We're not promoting his book, but yeah, Peter Thiel. He wrote this book, and basically his whole thing is, you shouldn't be, as an entrepreneur, you shouldn't start a business where you're in competition. You should want a monopoly, and I believe that. It's better to have a monopoly, and as I said before,
the goal.
You want a monopoly, but you want to treat your employees well. You want to treat your suppliers well. You want to treat everybody well, so that you can maintain this monopoly, and that's great. I got no problems with that. But the thing is, we as entrepreneurs always say that we're trying to identify this place where we don't have any competition, where and things. But there's very few really new products you can do, but you can still create a monopoly by doing certain things that customers really want. Finding those customers that you can service that you can take care of better than anyone else.
Mm.
And you can do it. You can do that. Like I was talking
wow.
to her, before in the interview beforehand, I was talking to Maddie, and I said, you can find these customers that you can take care of better than anybody. And if you can do that, you'll own that space.
Well, you know what? You've talked about the 80-20 rule in the
Okay.
past. And I'll tell you what is true. About 80% of business comes from the top 20% of customers. And so as a rule for us, when things get stressed, if the business gets distressed in any way, and we find ourselves having to, tighten the belt or pull in a little bit,
Right.
absolutely, we redirect more of our focus on that top 20% of customers, because that's where 80% of the business is coming from.
Yeah.
Because we need to take care of them. I'm glad you pointed that out. That is a very significant strategy, and I really sometimes I only think about it when things are in distress. I should think about it all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. Thing is, the only thing you're hoping to do is grow that 80% into bigger customers.
Yes.
You're always trying to think about how you're going to grow those.
That's the feeder. That's the funnel.
Feeder. So how can I grow them? How can I grow that business? Listen, we have talked for almost an hour.
All
I know it's like incredible.
Let's go.
Let's go.
No, we got to get going. I appreciate it.
Do you want to talk about anything else? I mean, we could talk. There's thousands of topics. We're going to have to do another one.
You had another interview doing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
I'm gonna keep them waiting.
Yeah. Well, no, we can go a couple more minutes. Let's talk about when you were a kid. Like, did you get any entrepreneurial lessons from your father and everything as a kid?
He said he started taking me on trips with him when he was real young.
Right.
When I was real young, he would go to various conventions and conferences that he had book products that catered to them. So my job at those conferences was to stand behind the book table and take people's money, sell books, And I learned some very hard lessons early on in that process.
People don't want to part with their money.
They don't want to part with their money, or I didn't count change right, or why are there some books missing? People walking
That's
away.
a hard lesson to learn at such a young age.
And so, he took me with him on those things. I had good learning curve. And in elementary school, I found that I could buy a tub of bubble gum from the dollar store, and I could sell the individual pieces and make a lot of dollars. Kids are always asking me for gum. So people learn that I'm the gum guy.
The gum guy.
And as I got older, I got into collecting baseball cards and trading and selling baseball cards at school. And I did really well with that until I got to a point where, again, somebody figured out how to steal them out of my locker.
Oh! Way harsh.
And so over time, doing these things, always wanting a little extra money, again, because my family always had to be on the edge of destruction. So if I wanted to get...
It sounds terrible.
Oh, you know what? We always had a nice house, roof over our head. My mom always had a couple horses. We had a garden that we would grow vegetables. And I would always have clothes. But if I wanted something brand named, if I wanted a pair of Nikes, I had to figure out how to pay for it. Otherwise, no, the shoes at Walmart or Kmart are good enough for you. And so I had to learn how to get that edge. And I always had that drive. Now my brother's my business partner. His drive, he was always fascinated by computers.
Wow.
And so at a young age, he would build a computer. And I would say, can you help me build one?
You could sell it.
So he'd help me build a computer. And we developed this this teamwork where, I would see what he was doing, what he was interested in learning, and I'd say, you know what, that could be really helpful to me, And in fact, learning how to do online meetings and teaching, whenever we were in an institution like university, you walk up to a computer system, everything's set up, but if I want something for a room scale setup, I'm looking at those systems and they're absolutely expensive. So I say to my brother, who's technology minded, takes care of all of our technology, what do I need to do here? And he finds great solutions that helps us get where we need to be, utilizing technologies. And so from as kids, I had the little entrepreneurial interest, little spikes of it. My brother, we learned that we had valuable skill sets that we needed each other for,
Right.
you know. And so we've always worked really well that way. We share an office. We look like, you know, private investigator
Two big
partners,
desks,
two
you
desks
know.
next to each other, and
Next to
you
each
know,
other.
we'll tell you, we like to keep an eye on each other.
There you go.
But it's a good synergy.
Yeah.
I'm having marketing and acquisitions and planning meetings, and he's having technology meetings and development things. We feed off of that.
That's great.
And so, right people, but as kids, you know, we grew up that way. We grew up working in these things together.
Okay. Well, we're going to have to cut it off. We're going to have to do another one because
All right.
we just barely touched the surface on all of our.
I look
stories.
forward to it.
Yeah, it's going to be good. So, thanks, Don. Thanks for coming up with the idea for the podcast. Thanks for joining me today. And if all of you folks out there enjoyed this video, we'd really appreciate it if you would give us a thumbs up review. Helps with our algorithm, helps us grow our community and everything. Also, if you could smash that subscribe button, we'd appreciate it. We're not going to be, well, right now, we're going to just be randomly producing these videos. And so if you want to be notified, you're going to have to get on that subscription list.